So everyone knows that the backbone of SEO is getting backlinks. And I don't think that's a big surprise. I think a lot of us know that. But the question has always been, how do you actually go and get these high quality backlinks? What is a high quality backlink? And do I just go on Fiverr and purchase a bunch of links? So today I'm sharing 5 of my favorite ways to get high quality backlinks. Now let's just remember that all backlinks is just convincing someone to put a link on their website that links back to your website. There's a lot of creative ways that you can persuade or negotiate or transact so that you can get these backlinks and then boost your ranking. And I say that because I think a lot of people see getting backlinks as this impossible task. If you think about it, getting a backlink is really not so different than persuading or convincing someone to do you a favor or help you with something, right? It's usually done through providing value up front, so much value that they want to feature you or link back to your website, or just paying for it outright. Now, with that said, a lot of people want to take the shortcut and just pay for it, and I totally get that. I've done that too, and it's worked really well for me. But then again, I'm noticing a lot of people go to Fiverr and they buy these cheap backlinks, which this is not about Fiverr links. I don't want to promote Fiverr links. I think it's highly risky. I think it's a good way to get penalized and potentially get your website de-indexed, which is the worst case scenario. And then there's backlinks that are really expensive by Forbes, Business Insider, TechCrunch, and there's this entire black market that is, yes, against Google TOS, but these companies do it anyways because they can charge $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 for a backlink. And that's just not within the realm of reality for directory builders like you and me. So these 5 methods are definitely more practical and realistic for daily directory builders like us. Now, I think there's a lot of basic top-level information on backlinks on the internet already, but really quickly, I wanted to mention that backlinks are definitely a quality over quantity game, and I've mentioned this before, but just to define that a little bit more. So the ideal backlink that you want to have is going to come from a topically relevant source. It's going to come from an authoritative and trusted website. This is a little bit tricky because metrics like domain authority are somewhat vanity metrics, but it is a clue to how authoritative a website can be, but also things like organic website traffic could be a good signal, a naturally placed backlink, so something that sounds normal, sounds natural when you're reading a blog. You also want real traffic that's on the referring page that's linking back to your website. That's an amazing sign, right? It's also a great opportunity because if they're reading that blog or that post or whatever it is, and then they end up clicking that backlink, landing on your website, and then they browse through your website, that's an incredible signal. That means it's highly relevant to those pages, and it's just overall a good situation. Then you also don't want your backlink to sit on a spammy website or a spammy page, and then ideally you want a do follow backlink. Now this is a whole topic, but the best SEOs that I follow, and in my own personal experience, I do feel that no follow backlinks have some weight and have some value, but it can be a little controversial, and I'm not gonna go into that right now. Now, before we jump into these 5 methods of getting backlinks, I did want to make a pretty exciting announcement, which is that in 7 days, I'm going to be launching Geodirectory Pro, which is going to be the private and paid community for anyone who's really serious and committed to building your own directory portfolio. And this is really my way of creating a safe and professional space where I can go deeper into your own personal directory projects with things like weekly live streams with guest speakers and member spotlights and website roasts and office hours. And then I'll also be creating a very detailed course as time goes on, where I basically cover everything that I can't fit in a 20-minute long video like this, because there are a lot of nuances in a directory building that I think could really help people. There will be an idea database with my personal vault of vetted directory niches and ideas, and there's a lot of other stuff that I plan to build. So it's going to be this ever-growing educational hub for anyone who is building a directory, regardless of which step or stage you're at. If you want to learn more information on what's included, the price, any kind of updates and announcements that are related to Geodirectory Pro, I'm going to leave a link to the post in our free community, and you can find everything that you need to know right there. All right, now let's dive into the 5 ways that I like to get backlinks. Now, the first method that works especially well with directories is some kind of badge or award. So recently I was taking a Delta Airlines flight and I saw this image right as we were boarding the plane, which basically shows all of these different awards and badges that Delta has gotten in 2024. And it's a great reminder that badges and awards still matter, both to Delta Airlines in this case, because they could use it as social proof, but also for the customers, because people want to know that they chose the most trusted and safe and best service airline company that they could, and you sure as hell don't see that on Spirit or Frontier. Now that was an in real life example, but sure enough, I looked it up, and Delta on their website has a dedicated page for America's most awarded airlines, and they have awards from every single year. And in many cases, these link back to the company that gave them that badge or reward. So for Fast Company, if we click on this anchor text, it then goes to Fast Company and the page where they basically talk about this specific award. And I was curious, so I looked up this URL on Ahrefs, and I did see that there's 171 monthly organic visitors, and they're ranking for a decent amount of keywords for this page, such as, is Delta Airlines good? And these keywords definitely have an impact, because if people are curious what the safest airline is, which I think we all know at the start of 2025 has been increasingly necessary and important for people to know. This is really smart. I think we see badges and awards a lot more commonly than we think. I know TripAdvisor is a badge that immediately comes to mind for me whenever you're looking up travel stuff. There's even more niche badges like Happy Cow, which is kind of the main directory for anyone who's looking for vegan food. And I know a lot of people who are vegan in my life, and that badge has become so important and such a signal of trust that apparently Happy Cow can even charge for it, because here we see that Happy Cow offers a premium plan that includes a partner badge, which signifies quality and commitment to plant-based options. Now, of course, it's taken a long time for Happy Cow to get to a point where people are willing to pay for a badge, but it does show just how much value it can provide customers and website visitors once you establish that trust as a brand. Now, if I were trying to use badges and awards as a way to get backlinks for my own directory, I would probably take inspiration from this example right here, which is weddingwire.com, and they basically created this web page congratulating all of these different wedding professionals locally, and it's essentially like a directory within a directory for local wedding service companies. So if we click on Chicago, for example, we can see all the winners for the 2025 Couples Choice Awards. They even have a name for it, which I think is awesome. And just think about how proud you would be as Albany Capture LLC or Andrew Hayden Photography if you were randomly listed on this pretty big wedding website as a winner of a choice award. And I'm familiar with this because back when I ran a footwear business, there were some days where I would randomly wake up and someone awarded me something online, just like this. I was Andrew Hayden. It was amazing. I felt so proud that a magazine or a blog mentioned my footwear brand, and I felt compelled to post it on Instagram and tell the whole world because it was a very proud moment. I don't think you need to create it for every single city like, Wedding Wire did. I think that's pretty ambitious, but I would create a page like this, basically celebrating the best local whatever your directory is about, and then I would reach out to them. I would email Food for Thought and I would say, hey, you just won a Couples Choice Award for 2025 for the best wedding caterer in Chicago, Illinois. And then in the email, I would include an HTML embed for that badge, so that Food for Thought in this example could easily just throw it onto the website, and that badge, when people click on it, would then go to your website. So that's kind of how I would do it. Let's just see for an example if we look up this website. Now, looking up this page, there are 24 backlinks going to this page right here. And let's just take a quick look. We have this backlink here that was first seen on the 18th of March. So this is Paul Michaels Events. And here's the link. We were awarded the Wedding Wire's Couples Choice Awards in 2015, thanks to all of our clients who reviewed us, which means we're in the top 5% of wedding professionals nationwide. So this is a great example. Paul Michaels Events created this post essentially, and they basically gave Wedding Wire a backlink. So they don't really need that backlink to survive, obviously, but as someone who is just starting out building a directory like you and me, this is a great way to go about it. Right? This is really smart. I think you just have to make sure it's legit and honest and authentic. If you just send badges to literally everyone, then you diminish the value of the badge and it's really not cool or useful. So it has to mean something. Now, the second method to get backlinks is probably the most popular way to go about it, which is to go and buy niche edits. A niche edit is basically when you go to some kind of SEO company or niche edit agency and you basically pay for a backlink. There's probably also going to be niche edits that vary in price. So you can buy one that is from a DR80 website or something that is more standard that might be cheaper. So it's kind of like this whole catalog and marketplace for essentially backlinks. Then once you pay them, let's say for example, it's like $100 backlink, then they'll ask you some questions like, what's the page you actually want us to link to? What industry or niche are you in? What are some keywords that you're targeting? What do you want your anchor text to be for the backlink? All these different questions to basically offer this service. After that, they will take the information, go to their own network, a bunch of different websites that they have existing relationships with, and then they will fulfill your order. Maybe in 2 weeks or something, you'll have a backlink. Now, I don't want to mention any niche edit companies because the truth is that you should always be really careful and you should never just trust someone, even me, if I mentioned a niche edit company. There's risk in niche edits too. Definitely do your own research and make sure that the vendor that you're going to is someone that you trust or a company that you trust. There's a lot out there. As you can see, just a quick search on Google shows a bunch of different niche edit agencies, but I wouldn't be so quick to just choose any of them. In fact, I think it's risky to do it this way, so don't just look up niche edits like I'm doing right now and just choose the first one and then spend money on niche edits hoping that it's gonna rank your website number one quickly. That's most likely not gonna work. And my point is, you just want to be really careful, right? Maybe use Reddit, that's a great resource, to do some due diligence before you go and spend money. Toxic backlinks are definitely a thing, and if you buy from a sketchy niche edits vendor and then you end up getting a backlink from some website that got penalized by Google, guess what? Now Google's gonna see your website is affiliated with that penalized website, and it's not gonna be good for you. You're gonna risk your website's good standing, so you just have to be very careful. So the other thing with niche edits is that most of the time when you get a niche edit delivered and fulfilled, you're going to notice that there's, for the most part, not going to be any traffic going to that referring page that gave you the backlink. So in my experience, because it's missing that traffic component that I think is really, really important, I think this is really good for people who are in pretty low competition niches. You have like a few competitors that you sniffed out and you're already gaining traction. You're pretty close to them, but you can't seem to get ahead of them. I would try niche edits out as an option, and you can see if that ends up giving you that boost that will eventually lead to overtaking that competition. But if you're in a really competitive niche and you didn't do the research, you didn't do the due diligence like I always talk about, then a niche edit's not going to do anything really. That's just the truth. And by the way, the cost for a niche edit, in my experience, again, can sit right around $100 per niche edit or per backlink. Maybe it's, $10, $15 more or less, but that's generally where I see the good, decent niche edits sit at. So hopefully that's a good point of reference for you. Now, the third method of getting backlinks I think is pretty slept on, which is either going on podcasts or going on what I'm calling founder stories. But yeah, podcasts are a great way to get backlinks. I think most people just don't do it because it requires a lot more effort, right? You have to go and essentially find a podcast that will be relevant to you, that you can actually have the expertise and confidence to speak on, reach out to them, and then basically have them accept you. Or have a personal brand where people just inbound ask you if you want to be on a podcast. Both of which seem a little bit challenging and daunting for any person who is just quietly building directories. But this means if you are the type of person who's willing to go and do that, this is kind of slept on. Here's an example of Pat Flynn's website, Smart Passive Income, and I'm a huge fan of Pat, but he basically puts his podcast on his website, and every time he has a guest, he'll link to their website on the actual podcast page. And Randy Reyes in this case gets an incredible backlink from a website that's an 81 in domain rating, a decent amount of organic traffic, so it is just a win-win situation. Now, of course, not all podcasters do what Pat does and actually puts their podcast on their website, but a decent amount do. Now, as for founder stories, this one's a little bit more niche and requires a little bit more of a narrow circumstance to happen, but I think it is really good, especially if you're using a specific tool to build out your directory. And what I mean by that is I recently got this DM over X from the co-founder of Geodirectory. He basically offered to do a founder story where they talk about how I built a directory and the things I was able to do with Geodirectory, kind of like a testimonial, but also like an actual story/interview where people can see my process, understand what I did to create a successful directory website. And here on Geodirectory, we can see that there are some founder stories here for attractionsnearme.co.uk, and then one for cellulitalife.com. And this is a great way to get a backlink. So here is the backlink that they got, which links to the actual homepage for this founder, and they just got a DR77 backlink. Well, you might be thinking, well, Frey, that's unfair because you have this YouTube channel and people watch your YouTube videos, so of course it makes sense that you would be able to get this backlink. And I get it, that's an unfair advantage, so that's totally fair, but I don't think these people, these founders, are necessarily people with massive followings or even necessarily a social media presence. I don't think the goal is to get an exclusive founder story from someone like me. I think it's really just to showcase the potential of their product. So I know I've talked about Geodirectory a lot. I know there's a bunch of other directory tools that people in my community use. So what if you build out a directory and then you reached out to the founder who built the directory tool that you used, and then you basically offered to do a founder story? Why wouldn't they want to feature your directory if it's getting 1,000 monthly visitors, 3,000 monthly visitors? SYD for the last 2 years has pretty much been getting 7,000 to 10,000 monthly visitors consistently. And plus, if you reached 3,000, 4,000 monthly visitors, I would just reach out to Geodirectory in this case and then ask to do a founder story, because they probably have a hard time getting people to go and willingly do a founder story. So if you have a little bit of success and you're on the way up, I'm sure that would be something they'd be willing to do. If not them, maybe some other directory platform that is looking to achieve that built-in trust. Now, obviously, this requires a little bit more legwork and proven success, which makes this a little bit harder to reach. But if you get here, you'd essentially be getting this very high quality backlink for free in exchange for a little bit of time, of course, to do your founder story. Now, the fourth idea is more of a creative way to go and get backlinks that I think could have a very high success rate, but it's essentially for people who are selling sponsored or featured listings. And whenever someone is interested, rather than me charging them money for putting them on this amazing spot on my directory, I could just offer them 1 month of premium placement in exchange for a backlink on their website. You might need to walk them through the steps a little bit and guide them to how to actually do it. If your sponsored listing is something like $50, $100 plus a month, the idea is that if you create something that has high perceived value on your website, whether it is a sponsored listing or it's something else that you create, then you could definitely leverage that to provide value in exchange for a backlink. Remember, there are ways to provide value in exchange for the backlink. You don't always have to pay money. There are a bunch of ways that this can play out. This is just one of them. Now, the fifth and final way to get backlinks is my personal favorite method, and it's the first thing that I do whenever I go and get backlinks before niche edits, before doing any of the creative stuff that I previously talked about. I think this is called link swaps or something like that, but it's essentially when you go and use a tool like Ahrefs to find out what backlinks your competition is getting, you reach out to them and then basically pay or convince them to swap your competitor's link for your link, which I know is a little bit devious. But this is the game, and I'm just telling you this because it's worked really well for me. And plus, I've only had major success with this when my directory had true value that was superior than my competition. And that was really a strong bargaining chip when I did this. But let me show you what I mean, and I will give you an example here. So here we're in Ahrefs, and I just typed in dog parks in the keywords explorer, and I'm just gonna click on dog parks near me because that is one of the keywords that I was targeting. Now I'm just gonna use Nylabone for this example, but you could use this for all of these websites because they're sitting on the front page. But we're gonna go over to overview and look this up. Now from here you can go to referring domains, but I'm gonna click on backlinks because I wanna see the backlink information. And the strategy is pretty straightforward. You're just going to start looking at their best backlinks. In this case, it says best link. There's 127 monthly organic visitors that are landing on this page. So that's a really great sign, as we mentioned. Pretty high domain rating right here. And the entire domain traffic gets 280,000 monthly visitors. So this is a really solid backlink. So I would just go over to MetLife Pet Insurance. I can tell already this is a tough example because what are the chances an insurance company will even know what you're talking about? Like, oh, can you swap my anchor text? But I'm just going to use this as an example, right? This method kind of banks on the fact that you're not choosing these massive companies. You want to be able to reach the site owner in an ideal situation. So on this page, we have to find the actual backlink. It's right here. Nylabone Dog Park Finder. And then you want to find their email somewhere. I don't see it here, so I would probably have to go to their contact page and see if I can find something. Here is the email. You would email them, and then you would reference this blog post and say, hey, I saw this blog post that you wrote, and I noticed that you linked to Nylabone Dog Park Finder. You know, I actually created the most accurate, the most thorough dog park directory on the internet, and it's called this. Would you be interested in just replacing that link with ours for $50, for $100, whatever it is? Surprisingly, this has worked really, really well for me. If I were doing this in real life, honestly, I would probably spend no more than 10 seconds on this webpage to know that this is not a good fit. So you can just, in that case, move on to the next one. And so this is roughgrip.com. Let's just take a look here. This looks more like a website that may be owned by an individual, just from the look of it. Here is the backlink here. Yeah, they have like personal photos. So this is an amazing sign. You can email them from here, and then I would do the same thing. I would say, hey, I saw this post, the ultimate list for finding dog parks, and I saw that you linked Nylabone. I'm the owner of dogparks.org. You can really sell it, right? You can say, oh, you know, I'm a passionate dog owner, so I created this entire directory, and we're really proud to be the most accurate, up-to-date dog park, yada, 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 and basically offer them $50 to swap that for your website. Obviously, this is great because you just removed a backlink from your competitor and then you now own that backlink. But the other advantage is that this is kind of the best of both worlds in terms of like cost, right? I've gotten really incredible backlinks for $50, and it's also well within your control regardless of the niche that you're in. As long as you have a means to go and find these referring pages, then you can go and execute this task. Now, the one condition that's gonna significantly increase your chances of success with this is that you actually have to be telling the truth when you say that you have the most accurate, up-to-date, thorough directory for your niche or dog parks in this example. Because think about it from their perspective. They're a independent publisher, they're a blog owner, whatever it is. Their goal is to provide value through their content, and they want it to be as high quality as possible. So they're not going to want to link to your crappy little directory if it's really just bare bones and not very useful. It has to go above and beyond and be better than the one that they are currently linking to. And I think you have to approach this like a human being writing an email rather than like a sales pitch. So that's kind of how this method works. Now, obviously, Nylabone is just one competitor, and I'm only looking at 2 different backlinks, but I would essentially repeat this process with all of Nylabone's backlinks, and then I would go down to the 2nd rank, 3rd rank, 4th rank, and I would just repeat this process. Keep in mind, we only looked at dog parks near me as the keyword. I would look up other keywords and then repeat the same process. So this is a very time-consuming activity, but in return, if you do successfully do this, you get an incredible deal on what will be an incredible backlink. I've had situations where it only took me 1 or 2 of these, and it solidified my first page, first rank ranking for a relatively low competition niche. So yeah, those are the 5 different ways to get backlinks. Now, the world of backlinks goes much deeper, and I can't fit everything that I know and I observe in a 20-minute video. And so that's why Ship Your Directory Pro is going to be where I go deeper and talk about the nuances of things like backlinks, finding a winning directory niche, and so much more. There's like a ton of stuff that I want to build. I'll be updating my Ship Your Directory website soon with all the information, but for now, if you just want to know right now what is included with Ship Your Directory Pro and kind of my whole vision with the whole thing, check out the link down in the description and you will be brought to our community post where you can learn it all. So with that said, hopefully you enjoyed this. Let me know if you have any questions, as always, in the comments. Really appreciate the support and hope to catch you guys in the next video. See ya.